everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So today I'm coming to you with a very exciting video, and that is a Black History Month book recs video. So as you guys know, it is February, it is Black History Month, and so I definitely wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some really great books by Black authors about Black teens and Black characters. But I would also like to say that this is the time of the year where a lot of people like to just read diverse books during the specific diverse month, and I would like to just say that you can read these books all throughout the year. You don't need to just read them during Black History Month. So rant / disclaimer over. I will also say that this is not a comprehensive recommendation list. These are mostly the ones that I have read and loved, but there's a bunch of books by Black authors that I have not read and cannot give my opinion on, obviously, but obviously you can go to other Black creators for those recommendations, so I hope you will. These are great books by Black authors that you can read any time of the year. So here we go. Okay, so I thought I'd start with a underrated pick, and that is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany D. Jackson. So this is a book that I read last year in 2018, and I absolutely fell in love with it, and I was just so happy I read it. This is actually set in the 1990s, I think 1998. It follows 3 Black teens in Brooklyn in 1998, and it follows the death of one of the teens, so Jasmine. Her older brother, Steph, dies, and so he was a huge rapper. He had incredible music as well, and so he has these 2 friends, Jarrell and Quadir, who kind of devise this plan to keep Steph alive through his music. So they create this persona of the architect and put his music out there, and it starts to get really big. But when a recording studio wants to actually sign the architect on and continue making music, they are kind of in a bind to try and figure out a way to still keep Steph's music alive. And so Jasmine kind of gets on board as well, and I just absolutely loved all 3 of these characters. They had their own kind of personal issues going on, but they were trying so hard to support their friend and what he represented to their whole community. I will also just say that I absolutely loved all of the lyrics and rap lyrics that show up in this book. They were just so well done, and I also just really loved the dynamic between these 3 characters. They were really good friends, but they were also connected by Steph, and there's also a little bit of a romance as well between 2 of the characters, and I just loved it. It's a totally underrated book, and I think that everyone should read it because it was so great. Alright, the next couple books that I want to recommend are by the same author. First is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a book written in verse, and it follows our main character, Xiomara Batista. She is biracial, and she has grown up kind of writing poetry, expressing herself through poetry, but she's never been really able to show it to other people or go public with it, and she knows that her mother kind of would disapprove. I will say this book also works as a feminist book rec as well, because the main character is kind of chafing against the expectations placed on her because of the fact that she is a girl and the strict religious guidelines that her mother has for her and ideas that she wants her to kind of adhere to. But when Xiomara kind of gets involved with a boy, and she also gets involved with a poetry slam group, she is starting to express herself in ways that she never had the chance to before, and she's growing a lot as a character and as a young girl, and that really shines through in the book and in the poetry that is used to narrate this book as well. So it was just so wonderfully and beautifully done, and I was just so invested in Xiomara's story, and I think like I was sobbing by the end of this book as well. So yeah, it had a like huge emotional impact. I definitely recommend the audiobook for this one because it was just so well done. And then the other book that I want to recommend by Elizabeth Acevedo is With the Fire on High. So this also features another Afro-Latina main character. Her name is Imani Santiago, and she is a teen mom. So she got pregnant in, I think, her 1st or 2nd year of high school, and so she now has a young little girl that she's raising, and she's finishing off high school. She is in her last year, and she's dealing with, you know, all of the perceptions that people have of her because she's a teen mom. Her parents aren't really in the picture, so she's been taken care of by her grandmother, and so her grandmother's been kind of helping her with taking care of her little daughter. And Imani is at this point in her life where she's trying to decide what she wants to do in the future. She knows that she's always loved cooking. She's an amazing chef, and the descriptions of food in this book were just so enticing, and I just constantly wanted to be eating something. You know, she's always had this talent for cooking, and so she joins a cooking class, but she's confronted with the fact that she's never had like formal cooking training, and so that's kind of difficult. But Imani knows that she has to take care of her young daughter, and she doesn't think that like college or going off to school somewhere else is really in the cards for her, so she hasn't really dreamt of the future. But then she also is getting kind of involved with this boy in her cooking class named Malachi, so there's like a cute little romance there. But there's also this perception that, you know, since she is a teen mom, people around her don't want her to make the same mistakes again, and she doesn't want to get involved. She doesn't want to get distracted, and she doesn't want to bring someone into her little daughter's life without really being sure of them. So she's going through all of these kind of complicated issues, and it's just a really heartwarming and endearing story, and I just was rooting for her the whole entire time, and it's just a wonderful, beautiful book, and I really think you should pick it up. Alright, the next book that I want to recommend is a big favorite among many, and that is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This features a Jamaican-American main character named Natasha, which is the identity that Nicola Yoon is as well, and this also features a interracial romance. It follows Natasha 12 hours before she's about to get deported back to Jamaica with her entire family, so she's racing against the clock to kind of keep them in the country, but she also ends up running into this Korean-American boy named Daniel, and there's a love story that kind of starts there as they're both trying to keep her in America but also kind of falling in love, and it's just so freaking sweet and really realistic in its portrayal as well, and it's also a little bit bittersweet, and I think it won like some huge awards as well. So yeah, I absolutely love this. It is like one of my favorite romances, like YA romances ever, so definitely recommend. And then of course I cannot have a Black History Month book recs video, especially with a bunch of YA on it, without mentioning these two books by Angie Thomas, The Hate You Give and On the Come Up. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of these, or maybe even have read them. This follows our main character Star Carter after her childhood friend is shot and killed by a police officer, and so she is the only witness, and she's kind of thrust into the media and the limelight for having been there, and she is getting involved with the activism and trying to fight against police brutality. She's also dealing with a lot of her own personal issues, family issues, and also just issues within her community and threats within her community as well for what she witnessed. And I just honestly love this book, not only for its impact on the YA community, but also how eye-opening it is, and also just the really human family within this group. I absolutely loved Star's family, and I was just really rooting for each one of them, and I wanted the best for all of these characters. And then On the Come Up was her follow-up book after The Hate You Give, and I really enjoyed this one as well. This follows the journey of Bree. Bree has always wanted to be a rapper and kind of provide for her mother and her family, because they are kind of struggling with money. But when her school, which has been undergoing a lot of like security, and it is a school with a pretty big population of Black and brown kids, when a security guard kind of attacks Bree for thinking that she's selling drugs when she was just really selling like candy and things, like contraband candy, and kind of handles her roughly even though she's just a kid. She's 16 years old. That kind of spurs on this bigger conversation about brutality and racism within the schools as well. Alright, and then a recent book that I read and really enjoyed is Given by Nandy Taylor. This is by a Toronto-based author, which I was really excited about, and it is an Afro-Caribbean inspired fantasy, which is super cool. It was a lot of fun. It has a huge element of romance, but I think this one in particular was really cool because it has a strong element of facing prejudice and culture shock. It is about a character who comes from these tribal lands, and she's always grown up around people who look like her and have respected her for who she is, and then she travels to this other country called Crush to kind of find a cure for her ailing father, and it is a very different country. There's not very many people who look like her, and so she's faced with a lot of prejudice and people who treat her differently for where she comes from. And she also is faced with like a professor who tries to appropriate her magic. Like she has this rune magic that she uses, and so that was like an element. So a lot of this book had like a lot of commentary on race relations right now, which I thought was super cool. So yeah, definitely recommend this as well. And then of course I can't go without recommending Black Enough by Ibi Zoboi. This is a anthology about young Black teens in America of differing backgrounds and racial makeups and all of that, and ages and sexualities and all of that. So it was just really great seeing like the different perspectives and so many different Black authors coming together, and I just loved a lot of these stories as well, and they all kind of centered around this idea of you are Black enough. Okay, and then the next book that I want to recommend is one that I don't actually own with me, but it's one of my favorite things on the planet, and that is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. He is one of my favorite authors, but this is a book written in verse. It tells the story of this boy who is going down an elevator, and it's kind of like a slowed down version, but he's going off to kill his brother's murderer, and he has a gun, and he's going through a lot of like emotional and psychological turmoil. But with each floor that he goes down on the elevator, he is visited by like this vision or ghost of someone that he used to know or someone he loved who was killed, and they are kind of giving him their advice. And it's just a really interesting and wonderfully told book, just honestly so amazing. So yeah, I definitely recommend this one, and it is written from a place of experience and someone who really knows their community, so I just really loved that. And then another book by Jason Reynolds that I absolutely love is For Everyone. This is kind of a poem slash speech slash motivational thing. It's just about, you know, chasing your dreams and doing what you need to do and having the courage to be who you want to be. It's very motivational, so I definitely recommend it if you are like graduating, or like if you are trying something new in life, or you just need something inspirational. It is just really great. And then the last two things that I want to recommend are not YA. They are kind of for adult audiences. One is a poetry book, and that is Helium by Rudy Francisco. This is by a Black poet, a spoken word poet in California, and I'm recommending this because a lot of the poems in the latter half of the collection kind of touch upon being Black or being a person of color and the difficulties with that. So I really enjoy this, and I think it's a great read. And then the last thing that I want to recommend is a play, and that is A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, and it's basically like a family drama, and it takes place in 1959 in this Black household and the challenges that all of them are kind of facing because of, you know, historical reasons and all of that. So I really recommend this. It was just so artfully done, and the characters were just so fleshed out, and seeing each of the characters, like the mother, the daughter, like the grandma, the son, dealing with their own problems, and seeing how some of them overlap, and, you know, seeing them be empathetic towards each other was just so wonderful and beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. So those are all the books that I wanted to recommend today for this Black History Month book recs. As I said before, these are books that you can read during February, but you can also read them any time of the damn year. So please go read them. They're all wonderful and amazing, and I hope next year I will have even more to add to this recommendation list. So look forward to that. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I know a lot of you will probably have your own recommendations for books by Black authors about Black people, so please leave those in the comments for me and other people watching. I would love to hear them and see them. But other than that, I will see you in my next video, and please remember that the story ain't over. Bye!